Welcome to the Highly Effective Man podcast, hosted by former Navy SEAL turned life and fitness coach. I'm your host, JP Bolwan. This podcast is your resource for unlocking the healthiest, most productive, and highly effective man within you. Let's go. What's up, guys? I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite speeches. And it's a speech that every time I read it, it reminds me of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, and just the kind of attitude that I need to bring to coaching, to living my life. It's one of those ones that just kind of hung up on my wall, and whenever I look at it, it just reminds me to give everything I got. This speech is What It Takes to Be Number One by Vince Lombardi. And I'm just going to read it all the way through, and then we can break it down. All right, so it starts off like this. Winning is not a sometime thing. It's an all-the-time thing. You don't win once in a while, and you don't do things right once in a while. You do them right all the time. Winning is a habit, and unfortunately, so is losing. There's no room for second place. There's only one place in my game, and that's first place. I have finished second twice in my time at Green Bay, and I don't ever want to finish second again. There's a second place bowl game, but it is a game for losers played by losers. It is and always has been an American zeal to be first in anything we do, and to win, and to win, and to win. Every time a football player goes to ply his trade, he's got to play from the ground up, from the soles of his feet right up to his head. Every inch of him has to play. Some guys play with their heads. That's okay. You've got to be smart to be number one in any business. But more importantly, you've got to play with your heart, with every fiber of your body. If you're lucky enough to find a guy with a lot of head and a lot of heart, he's never going to come off the field second. Running a football team is no different than running any other kind of organization, an army, a political party, or a business. The principles are the same. The object is to win, to beat the other guy. Maybe that sounds hard or cruel. I don't think it is. It is a reality of life that men are competitive, and the most competitive games draw the most competitive men. That's why they are there, to compete. The object is to win fairly, squarely, by the rules, but to win. And in truth, I've never known a man worth his salt who in the long run, deep down in his heart, didn't appreciate the grind, the discipline. There's something in good men that really yearns for discipline and the harsh reality of head-to-head combat. I don't say these things because I believe in the brute nature of men or that men must be brutalized to be combative. I believe in God, and I believe in human decency. But I firmly believe that any man's finest hour, his greatest fulfillment to all he holds dear, is the moment when he has worked his heart out in good cause and lies exhausted on the field of battle, victorious. Coach Vincent T. Lombardi. Now, if you guys hear that speech and it doesn't fire you up, then this podcast probably isn't for you. All right. This podcast, and there's a reason why I chose this one as the number one podcast that I'm starting. I wanted this speech to be basically the intro and the beginning of what this podcast is going to be about. It's not going to be just about football or, whatever it is, but it's about being number one. And what does that mean? So like being number one in your life, right? It means giving everything you have so that you can be the best that you can be, right? It means being in shape. It means being productive. It means being the most effective person that you can be. Now let's go ahead and break it down. The first paragraph, winning is not a sometimes thing. It's an all the time thing. You don't win once in a while and you don't do things right once in a while. You do them right all the time. Winning is a habit. Unfortunately, so is losing. Now, that goes with your life, right? We don't do things right once in a while, right? If we just do it once in a while, we're never going to get to where we want to be. The one thing that determines whether you succeed or not is probably consistency. And that means showing up every day, not just sometimes, but every day, right? If you want to lose weight, you got to eat right every day, not just sometimes. Now you look at the second paragraph. There is no room for second place. There's only one place in my game, and that's first place. I finished second twice in my time in Green Bay, and I don't ever want to finish second again. This is a second. There is a second place bowl game, but it is a game for losers played by losers. It is and always has been an American zeal to be first in anything we do, and to win and to win and to win. And I think that just goes to show you that, you know, we glorify first, second, and third, right? But I guarantee you that anybody that's placed second or third in the Olympics wishes they had the gold. And I think that goes for everybody. You can accept taking second, or you can accept taking bronze, or, you know, especially if you had no business being there in the first place. But I think deep down inside, every man or every person wants to be the man, right? They want to be the number one person. And if that's not your goal, then, I mean, this podcast probably isn't for you, like I said earlier, right? Like, this is for people that are trying to push themselves to be the best version of themselves that they can be, right? And so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to lead off with this speech, because this speech is either gonna speak to your soul or it's not. And if it's not, then you probably don't want to listen to the rest of my podcast, right? And so being first is what we're after, right? We're not just trying to be good or be all right. We're trying to be great. We're trying to be excellent. We're trying to be the best that we can be. And then he goes into it where he says, every time a football player goes to ply his trade, he's got to play from the ground up, from the soles of his feet up to his head. Every inch of him has to play. Some guys play with their heads, and that's okay. You've got to be smart to be number one in any business. But more importantly, you've got to play with your heart. Every fiber of your body. If you're lucky enough to find a guy with a lot of head and a lot of heart, he's never going to come off the field second. Now, when I read that, I think about, and I think we can all think about people that we've known in our lives that are like this. They're smart, they're passionate, they give everything they can to you, right? And those are the kind of people that you want to be around. That's the kind of person that you want to be, right? We've known people that are smart, but they just don't care, or there's people that care, but they just don't have what it takes to accomplish the mission, whatever it is, or to reach the goal, right? You need somebody that's got both, right? They've got the talent, they've got the will, and they have the heart to do it. And at the same time, it's the heart as in not giving up, but then the heart because they actually care, right? And that's the kind of person that we want to be. And in sports, these are the kind of people that you want on your team. In business, these are the same thing. These are the people that you want to have on your team. In life, these are the people that you want to have around you. Because these are the people that are going to support you, that are going to help you. And whatever it is that you do, you have to give your head and your heart to it. And if you don't feel like you can give your head and your heart to whatever it is that you're doing, then I would seriously consider looking at what it is that you're doing and go after that one thing that stimulates your head and your heart. Running a football team is no different than running any other kind of organization, an army, a political party, or a business. The principles are the same. The object is to win, to beat the other guy. Maybe that sounds hard or cruel. I don't think it is. And this is just about being the best, right? Nobody says, I want my team to be second best. Nobody says, I want my business to be second best. No, you go into business or you go into life to try and be the best that you can be, right? At the end of your life, you don't want to see God and be like, oh, God says, oh, you could have done this, but you only put out this much, so this is what you became, right? No. You want to give everything you can so that at the end of your life, there's no regrets. You can look back and say, I did everything possible. Yeah, you might come up short, but that's just the way it is. But if you gave everything you have and you still came up short, you can live with that because there was nothing else you could do, right? We want to give everything we can, and the object is to win, right? To live a life worth living, to live a life without limits, to do things that most people think is impossible. It is a reality of life that men are competitive, and the most competitive games draw the most competitive men. That's why they are there, to compete. The object is to win fairly, squarely, by the rules, but to win. And that's true. The most competitive men are attracted to the most competitive games, right? Or the most competitive games draw the most competitive men, right? And I think that's probably going to be the same thing for this podcast. If you're listening to this, there's a desire within you to be the best that you can be. You know, people that seek out growth, they want to grow. They want to be better. I think, it's funny. I was thinking about this the other day. It takes a lot of courage to admit that you're not perfect, to admit that I can grow or that I could be better. A lot of people, might shun self-development or self-help or the thought of coaching and that type of stuff because they think they don't need it, right? And I think that's just a blind spot, right? Because if you think you're perfect, well then, yeah, you're gonna be stuck, right? And anybody that's willing to give everything they can and admit that, yeah, they could grow more, they're gonna keep growing. And somebody that's competitive, that wants to be the best, they're gonna seek that out. And an important part of that is playing by the rules, right? So doing everything you can that's within the rules of whatever it is. And in truth, I've never known a man worth his salt who in the long run, deep down in his heart, didn't appreciate the grind, the discipline. There's something in good men that really yearns for discipline and the harsh reality of head-to-head combat. Now, I'm willing to bet a lot of us out there have had situations where we're struggling, we're giving everything we got, and it doesn't seem like it's going to happen, whatever the goal is, whatever we're pursuing. And then with all that hard work, it happens. And it's like the best feeling ever, right? Everything you put into it, and you get the prize at the end, right? You've been focused, you've been given everything you have, and then all of a sudden it comes to reality. And it's like the most amazing feeling that any one of us could ever experience. That's a great feeling. And that's one of the things that we're chasing, right? Is that feeling of accomplishing something, that feeling of being the best that we can be, right? Now, on the flip side of that, I'm willing to bet that some of us have probably gotten things where we didn't even work hard for them. And it's kind of like, That's nice. It's not that great, right? It's a very different feeling. Even if it is something that's nice, but if you didn't have to work hard for it, it doesn't really mean that much to you, right? Or if you didn't have to compete against somebody for it, it's like, that's great, you know? But it's not one of those things that stands out in your life where it's a memory that means something deep to you. I think that the most deepest memories, or the things that I remember the most, are the ones where people doubted me, or that, you know, it was super hard for me to do or to accomplish, and I gave so much effort into accomplishing. You know, I mean, like thinking about SEAL training, right? Like becoming a Navy SEAL. Like there's a great chance that me, when I was 18 years old, a kid from New Mexico who had no swimming background, that was not going to become a SEAL. I mean, if you had to bet, nobody's going to take that bet. Some kid that's 5'6", 140 some pounds, 150 pounds is going to become a Navy SEAL. I'd be willing to bet no chance. And to this day, it's one of the you know, it's a huge accomplishment in my life, and it's also set me up for how I operate my life. I can always look back on those moments and think, man, if I can do that, there's nothing I can't do. And then the final paragraph is like, I don't say these things because I believe in the brute nature of men, or that men must be brutalized to be combative. I believe in God. I believe in human decency. But I firmly believe that any man's finest hour, his greatest fulfillment to all he holds dear, is that moment when he has worked his heart out in good cause and lies exhausted on the field of battle, victorious. And that just goes to speak, the harder something is to accomplish, the more it means to you to come out victorious, right? And I think that's life, right? Life's no walk in the park, especially if you're trying to grow and try to be the best version of yourself possible, because that means you have to admit that you're not already, right? And if you admit that, that means, okay, now there's something that I need to get better or to grow. And that automatically means that in some way or another, you might be thinking I'm insufficient. And that's okay. You're just saying, like, I need to work on this area of myself, or I need to become better in this area of myself. And, you know, what the beauty of it, or, you know, that makes it worthwhile, is the fact that when you work on yourself and you become a better version of yourself, a better thinker, a better speaker, a better teammate, a better lover, better husband, better father, all of these things benefit the people around you in one way or another. And I think at sometimes, like, they may not see it in the beginning, but the more you work on yourself and the more that you try to be the most effective version of yourself, the more of a benefit it is to the people around you. And so, you know, with that, this podcast is going to be about being the healthiest, most productive, and effective version of ourselves. And we're shooting to be the number one version of ourselves that we can possibly be. And that means it's going to take discipline. It's going to take grind. It's going to take us giving everything we got so that we can grow and become the best version of ourselves possible. Because I guarantee you, if you're willing to put in the work, you're going to see some amazing things happen in your life. I'm a living example of it. I mean, I've done some things in my life that, nobody would have ever thought was possible, especially if you knew me when I was a teenager. I was just like a young punk getting in trouble, doing whatever. But there came a moment in my life where everything kind of turned around and I started figuring out, like, if things are going to change, it's going to be up to me. I've got to give everything I've got to make my life something worthwhile. And I did it. And so now my passion is to serve, to learn how I can best help other people. And that's where this podcast comes in, to share some tools, some things that I've learned along the way, things that have helped me. And, if it helps a couple people out there, great. If it helps a lot of people, even better. And that's what this is about. Helping people get better, be stronger, and be the most effective version of themselves. All right. That's it for this podcast, you guys. Thank you for listening. And if you want to learn more or work with me, just listen to the end of the podcast. All the information's there. All right. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Highly Effective Man podcast. If you enjoyed or learned something on this episode, do me a favor and share this with somebody who you think needs to hear it. And one last thing, if you want to work with me as your coach to help you get fit, be more productive, and in general, just be the most effective version of yourself, head over to my site, higherlevelcoaching.co. Once again, that's higherlevelcoaching.co, and schedule a call with me there. Thank you again. Let's go.